Meet Shantungosaurus. Now, for some reason I couldn't find the actual date of discovery of this dinosaur. All I could find that it was described in 1973, and it was found in the Shandong province of China. And the person who described it was Zhu Zhang, who I've mentioned in previous episodes, even just the last one for Gigantoraptor. And as of now, he's named more dinosaurs than any living paleontologist, which essentially makes him a paleontology celebrity. Now, what was found in this first discovery was at least 5 incomplete skeletons in what is called a bone bed, which is a geological deposit that is basically a gold mine for a crap ton of fossils. Now, the first thing to notice about these bones was that they're very similar to another hadrosaur, Edmontosaurus, except they were quite a bit bigger, so much that it was given the species name Giganteus, which is pretty telling. The skull alone was over 5 feet long, which is longer than even the skull of Tyrannosaurus rex. The estimated length for the first remains were just under 50 feet, and a height around 20 feet, which is absolutely ginormous, especially for a non-sauropod dinosaur. Now fast forward a few years later, and more fossil material was found in 2007, but this time it was of even more individuals. It's unknown why so many died in this one area, although it's most likely due to a flood of some kind. What was found here was skull bones, limbs, and vertebrae from countless individuals. However, these bones weren't even attributed to Shantungosaurus at first, which I'm gonna call Shant from here on forward. Instead, they made an entirely new genus and species based on these remains, Gigantosaurus maximus. Now, it wasn't long before people started realizing the similarities between these two dinosaurs, and they were soon attributed to being from a Shant. The very slight differences in looks was just due to different growth stages. Interpretations like this usually occur when the new fossil is from a younger individual of a previous species. This would make sense with Shant. It was already the largest hadrosaur, so any new fossils surely couldn't be from an even older and bigger individual. At least that's what most people would think. However, Shant, yet again, proved to be the exception in this. These new fossils raised the size estimates for Shant, because they were in fact from larger and likely older individuals. They bumped numbers up from 48 to 54 feet long, and its new height was then 23 feet. Shant just kept getting bigger, and the weight was then kept out at 18 tons, which is absolutely massive. Now, a few years after this, paleontologist Gregory S. Paul came in and kind of nerfed this poor hadrosaur. No shade being thrown here though, since he's actually made some of the biggest contributions to how we view dinosaurs. Now, what Gregory S. Paul did is he re-examined the bones and decided that the estimates were maybe a little bit too much, and this actually happens quite often in paleontology. A new species or genus will be described and discovered, and other scientists later on will then look at the remains and decide that the estimates might have just been slightly off. That's why you might hear some very competing size estimates for all kinds of dinosaurs. Now, you'll be happy to hear that the size estimates weren't lowered by that much. Even after this re-evaluation, Shant still sat at the top, being the largest hadrosaur with a new maximum size at 49 feet long and 14 tons, give or take. It lost some weight, but 14 tons isn't your everyday measurement. So here's a bit of perspective. That's roughly twice as heavy as an African elephant, which means that a misplaced step from a Shantungosaurus could spell death for small dinosaurs. Now, dinos reached some of the largest sizes right before their demise, so it makes sense that the biggest of big hadrosaurs would be seen during the years just before being wiped out. Now, because of its outrageous size, Shantungosaurus isn't just the largest hadrosaurid, but possibly the largest land animal to ever exist. At least when you remove sauropods from the equation. Keep in mind that when I say largest or biggest, I'm talking about just mass here, so hold your horses if you're a Spino fan. A lot of you may hear the word hadrosaur and think of the classics. Parasaurolophus, Corythosaurus, and Lambeosaurus seem to be the big three. All of these animals had large, elaborate head ornaments, which could have had more uses than I can count on one hand, which is where they get their popularity. Now, Edmontosaurs, like Shantungosaurus, don't really have these. Instead, they're usually shown as having relatively bald heads with no flashy structures. Some Edmontosaurs, like the aptly named Edmontosaurus, had small crests in certain species. Sadly, not even an itty-bitty crest has been found for Shant, so it'll likely continue being our beloved bald-headed giant. There is one thing about its skull that's pretty interesting though. It has an exceptionally large nasal opening. Now, based on that terminology alone, you might be able to guess what that means. It had a big schnoz. Some reconstructions even give it some flashy structures here rather than a crest, which tend to turn out looking a little comical. Alas, a walking apartment unit with a funny face is still a walking apartment unit, and that funny face may have been used to produce some of the most alien noises Earth has ever heard. Everything from low booms and harmonic drones are possibilities here, because we really have no clue what they sounded like. We just know they were cool. Like other Edmontosaurus, it also had a mouthful of tiny teeth numbering over the thousands. These teeth created what's called a dental battery, which sounds like the opposite of something that you want in your mouth, but this is a different kind of battery. These were rows of teeth with a column of replacement teeth underneath each row, which looks and sounds horrifying, but it was really useful in helping to grind away at plants. Another thing that most hadrosaurs share in common is living in an environment that contains some of the biggest predators to ever exist. Edmontosaurus had to deal with T-Rex, Lambeosaurus had to deal with Gorgosaurus, and Shantungosaurus likely had to deal with Tarbosaurus at some point. All three of these predators I mentioned are tyrannosaurs, which goes to show just how similar some environments were to each other, despite being so far away. Shants also lived with a wide variety of plant-eating dinosaurs, including Therizinosaurus, the Ankylosaur Tarchia, the Ceratopsian Protoceratops, and more than likely also dealt with titanosaurs, which were some of the largest sauropods that ever existed. Shants haven't gotten too much love in media, only being featured in two major examples, that being Dinosaur King and the Legacy edition of the Isle video game. And that does it for this month's prehistoric animal. I know I uploaded this a bit late, so have some forgiveness with me here. You'll be getting 2 uploads this month, so you have that in store for you. Also, let me know in the comments what you think of this new formatting. And of course, remember to check out the Discord, hang out with fellow dino lovers, and join me over on Twitch to hang out with the community live. And as always, keep your pencils sharp.